Michelle Obama is a lot more than just the wonderful and helpful wife of 44th President Barack Obama. She is a lawyer, an author, and a mom. For the sake of her daughters Malia and Sasha, Michelle gave up her job. She is an inspiration to them. Michelle was a good mom, but it wasn't always easy for her. She had a strong drive to do well. She handled the difficulties of being a mom in public while being first lady with grace and honesty. Her kids appreciate all the work she does, but things aren't always what they seem to be. So Michelle Obama gets very emotional when her children tell her this. She was born Michelle LaVaughn Robinson on January 17, 1964, in Chicago, Illinois. She comes from a loving family of 4. Karen Shields was her mother, Fraser was her father, and Craig Robinson was her bigger brother. Fraser worked at the city water plant and was also the captain of the Democratic ward. Before she became a full-time mom, her mother worked as a simple secretary at Spiegel's mail order store. Michelle says that her family is typical. The mom works, the dad stays home, and everyone eats dinner together at the table. Her family was strong and stable, and they spent a lot of time together playing games, going on vacation, and caring for each other. In the future, when Michelle has her own kids, she will use this to form a long bond with her own kids. Michelle could look up to her brother because they lived in a close-knit family. She looked up to her brother, which didn't always help her in school, though. A lot of times, people didn't think much of her, and she was treated badly because she was a woman. Her view was never more important than her brother's. Things were bad for her, and one terrible event made things even worse. Michelle's dad was not feeling well. He had sclerosis, which made Michelle feel bad. So the bad things people said about her hurt her, but they also taught her something important that she used in her adult life. Michelle Obama was strong from a young age. She learned to ignore the bad things people said about her and instead used them to motivate herself to keep going. Michelle was a very smart girl, and she started her schooling by taking a gifted class at Bryn Mawr Elementary School, which is now called Boucher Academy. She went to Whitney Young High School and was on the honor roll for 4 years and the treasurer of the student council. As a member of the National Honor Society, in 1981, she was the valedictorian of her class. After that, Michelle found that the past wasn't easy to leave behind when it was time for the next class. Michelle went to Princeton University and got a major in sociology and a minor in African American studies. It was there that she learned she had to deal with racism, not only in high school, but also elsewhere. During her time at Princeton University, she worked hard to make a name for herself without being judged by her brother, her race, or her gender. Even her friends treated her badly because she was black. News reports say that Michelle's white roommate's mother tried to move her daughter to a different room because Michelle was black. Some people she met in Princeton made her feel like a visitor, even though she was able to make some links. Michelle joined Third World Center, an academic and culture group, because she had been discriminated against. Their main goal was to help kids from minority groups. Their daycare center also had tutoring for bigger kids after school, and she was in charge of that. Michelle had a lot of different situations in college, and she was shocked by how much money she saw. What shocked her was seeing college students drive BMWs when they had grown up in a family where such cars were common. She finished in 1985 with a thesis called Princeton Educated Blacks and the Black Community that was 99 pages long. Something in Michelle had been stirred by her childhood in Princeton. Because she wanted to make a difference, she chose to become an attorney. Michelle was fed up with being treated badly. She wanted to stand out and fight for herself and other people. So she tried to get into Harvard Law School and was accepted. A law degree was earned by her in 1988. Michelle was a new woman by the time she was done with Harvard. She had more faith in herself and was ready to take on the world. Harvard helped Michelle figure out a very important part of who she is. Charles Ogletree, Michelle's faculty guide, gave her advice about her time at Harvard. He said that the school taught her that she could be smart and black at the same time, despite what racists said. She had a strong sense of who she was thanks to her schooling. It opened up doors for her, and she became the third First Lady with a college degree after Hillary Clinton and Laura Bush. But we're getting off track. Come back to the story. Michelle really cared about what was right. She used to work for the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, where she mostly helped low-income renters with their living issues. Then something awful happened that broke her. Michelle's father died of multiple sclerosis after a long battle. Just as she was getting over the death of her dad, she lost someone else and it broke her. Suzanne, her friend, also died. Michelle was devastated by these deaths, but she didn't let them take over her. Instead, she used them to drive herself to make a difference in the world. She worked hard at her job because she wanted to be the best lawyer there was. Michelle was so busy with work and her job that she didn't have time to date. The beautiful Barack Obama wasn't part of Michelle's goals and plans, though. Everything changed when he came into her life. They met at work, where Michelle was supposed to be his boss. Soon, they felt something between them, and they chose to go on a date. But there was one problem. What they were interested in was different from one another. Obama liked to try new things, and Michelle liked things to be stable. The first time they met was at the movies, and that night set the tone for many more dates. They finally got married in October 1992, and soon after they were ready to have their own children. They were happy when Michelle got pregnant. Then it took place. Michelle was very upset when she had a miscarriage. Michelle and her husband chose to go with IVF because of how upsetting that event was. After that, they had two lovely girls, Natasha in 2001 and Malia Ann in 1998. Michelle cared about and loved her children a lot. She even gave up her job as an attorney to help them. Michelle and her husband chose not to move when Barack was elected to the state Senate in 2004. They thought it would be best for their daughters, so they didn't move to Washington, D.C., but stayed in Chicago. Michelle wasn't the only mom who put her girls first. Her husband did too, and while he was running for president in 2008, he had to give up something to be with his family. Even though he meant well, his political job put a lot of stress on his family, especially after he won the election and became the 44th President of the United States. Barack Obama wrote in his second book, The Audacity of Hope, about the state of his family at the time that he and his wife were so tired and stressed out that they didn't have time for much of anything, let alone romance. Michelle was stressed out. She had power, respect, and the chance to change a lot of people's lives, but her family was the most important thing to her. Michelle started to look for help because she didn't want her family to split up. The first 3 women she talked to said they had kept their families together while they were in the White House. At some point, Michelle needed more help, so she brought her mother to the White House. Some changes had to be made by her and her husband, so even though they were busy, they still found time to spend with their family. They planned trips and nights with games, but most importantly, they made sure they loved each other. Michelle's strong desire to keep her family together came from a time when she was a child. She learned from her father, who refused to give up even though he was sick, and still found time for his family. She cared about their well-being as a whole. She kept an eye on their schoolwork, taught them kindness, read them bedtime stories, and let them find out who they were without seeing themselves as extensions of her and their dad. And Barack Obama agreed with Michelle. He made sure he was there for his girls as much as he could. He became very close with them and promised that history would not repeat itself. He didn't have a father when he was young. He didn't want his kids to ever feel the way he did. He told Ellen DeGeneres that both of his children are great people. I'm not ready for Malia to leave, but she is. I really like her. I'll miss having her around all the time, but she's ready to go. She's just a very smart and strong person. She's ready to go her own way. Michelle agreed with her husband when she said that she told her girls not to judge themselves by what their parents had done, but to make their own way in the world, just like they did. She told them to take some time to learn about themselves and decide who they want to be in the world, not what other people think of them or what I want them to be, but to think deeply about how they want to live their lives and move through the world. So I don't want them to judge themselves based on what other people think, which is hard for young girls. Michelle Obama likes to let her kids find out who they are, so it wasn't a surprise when Malia chose to take a gap year after high school without Michelle telling her no. Barack Obama agreed with her choice and thought that was the time when they needed each other the most, since they would soon be back to their normal lives. Why did Michelle choose to take a year off? Malia wants to make a difference in the show business with all her heart. During her gap year, she worked as an intern in New York City on the set of HBO's Girls, which stars Lena Dunham. She helped with the filming of the now-canceled sci-fi thriller Extant in California. Halle Berry played the lead role, and also lived at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., which is run by the Smithsonian. Malia had to go back to college after her break year. Her parents went to the same college as her parents, so she had looked at a few college names. During her search, she went to a few public and private schools. There were a few schools she looked at like Stanford, New York, California, and a few others. As always, Michelle was ready to show her kids the way. She told Malia what she could do. Michelle told 17 magazine what she told Malia in an interview. When we talk about work, she said, the Obama family has worked hard to stay together and it helped them get through some tough times while Obama was president. The media looked down on and made fun of the family, but they've stayed strong. Now that they are not in the White House, things have gotten better. Michelle has talked about their life since they left the White House. During the lockdown because of the coronavirus outbreak, they spent one of the most important times together. During this time, there was a powerful and emotional moment. Michelle Obama shared a secret that her daughters Malia and Sasha made that was so deep and emotional that it made her cry. The mother of two said that her girls don't want to spend time with their parents during this hard time. But before this news came out, the family had been enjoying each other's company. When the lockdown was revealed, everyone was looking forward to being with each other. She told me that we would work on our own during the days we were apart. Because the girls were still in school in the spring, we would work, do some exercise, and then get together in the evenings. We were going to do these things. We would start with drinks, and then play games and do tasks. During the first few weeks of the lockdown, the family seemed to enjoy it. Michelle says that Barack showed the girls how to play cards. We did have some things planned. It was like we had an art show day where we all painted with watercolors and then showed them. After that, something changed. The girls were tired and bored being with their parents and wanted to go back to their normal lives, which included going to college. Our kids probably got tired of us at first, which was fine because we were tired of them too. And that was the start of summer. They could try new things and spend more time outside during the summer, she said. Along with other things, they went to the farm, which broke up the monotony. Her girls quickly going back to Zoom classes helped. Their girls got tired of their parents, but Michelle's news shows how close and loved the Obama family is and how proud she and her husband are to have two beautiful, smart daughters. Michelle is proud of how well she raised her girls, even though it wasn't always easy. The fact that she and her daughter grew up in the White House during a time when her husband was president of the United States makes her feel even more overwhelmed. She thought that her husband kept things stable for the kids and that she was the happiest woman in the world to have married Barack Obama. But when you're with someone and know why you're with them, you know that there is a friendship and a base there. That may seem like it goes away when things are tough, but we always come back to it, she said. When the family left the White House, things got better. Michelle Obama handled the change from being First Lady to being a regular person with style and purpose. Michelle, Barack, and their kids have had a busy time getting used to life after leaving office. She said that the next step in her journey is to keep making sure that everything she does has a reason for being there. The Global Girls Alliance, which she started, is all about education and started a 10-city tour to promote her book Becoming. In her book, which was full of personal stories, thoughts, and life lessons, she wrote a bestseller. Through the book, she was able to connect with people all over the world and encourage them to accept their own journeys. Her talks were mostly about being strong, being a leader, and the power of stories. She also spoke at conferences, events, and groups, using her fame to push for good change. She started the Global Girls Alliance to show girls all over the world how important it is for them to go to school. She talked about how going to school helped her get to certain points in her life and encouraged other kids to do the same. Michelle also said she wants to give the next group of teachers, doctors, lawyers, and community activists more power. But Michelle is going toward retirement right now. Even though she is very active and driven, she is picky about the projects she works on too. She and her husband are putting together a solid plan so that they can relax and spend more time together. As they became less well known, they chose to focus on their foundation and charitable work, hoping to make a difference that would last. Michelle thinks she deserves to retire after all the years she has spent working for the general good. Sadly, some things have gotten in the way of her new phase. Mari Robinson, her mother, died when she was 86 years old. Michelle wrote a touching message to her mother in which she expressed her thanks and talked about all the great things about her mother. Marion Robinson was happy with what she had, whether it was their small apartment, the holiday decorations she made herself, or the way she did her hair at home. Michelle loves her family very much and has the strength and love of a mother who cares deeply. This trait wasn't just about taking care of her own kids. From 2009 to 2017, when Barack Obama was president, she was First Lady of the United States of America. During that time, she touched many people's lives.